Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of American Scouser TV's Monday Night Podcast. I am filling in for Timucin as the host with Bickler, as always. Gally here, Massachusetts, back from Vegas last week. Made my little random ass appearance from the Venetian hotel that I was in. Good trip. Came home. Never took money out of the bank, Paul. Went with $40, came home with 300 plus in my pocket. Should have been a lot more, honestly. Got up to I think I was up $1,000 at one point. But then I was like, well, fuck it. If you start with 40 and get to 1,000, you'll be lucky if you make it home. And I was lucky to make it home. So how are you doing? How was your week?
The week was good. This week is off to a flying start. I think we talked about this. I don't know if there's some sort of lunar cycle, but work was not so today. So I am looking forward to having a proper footy chat and then just deprogramming after this and just, I don't know, doom scrolling until someone godly hour in the morning because I'm in refusal that the day is over and I got to start over in the morning.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, so we'll get to the doom scrolling. But before we do that, let's say hi to the crew. Tony in the studio, greetings. Hi, Tony. Sir Z, good to see you as always, my friend. Ryan says, good evening. Always nervous when dad isn't home. Trust me, there is nobody more nervous than me right now, my friend. Kenny's here, jumping in with a nice smiley emoji. Brian Shelton saying good evening. And of course, Sir Z and Tony are going at it in the chat. They go at it all the time. Before you know it, we'll be having jokes about pineapple on pizza that stop being funny in July.
Don't encourage it.
I always encourage the dad jokes, especially when one's a dad. And I don't know if Tony's a dad or not, but God knows he has some great dad jokes.
Do we want to talk about how unfair it is that Tim's away refereeing soccer without VAR intervention? Living the good life?
He is living the good life without VAR. I was thinking of that myself. I just imagine him terrorizing the youth of America because I know how he yells at me when he's disappointed in me. So I can only imagine what it's like when a bad coach starts to argue footy with him and he just gets more and more frustrated with where they are and why they think the way that they do. But he may join us a little later. Tony says, I'm a dad 6 times over. That is 6 times more than me, Tony, and double Bickler. And I think if you are doing dad on the square, you have Bickler. But I mean,
I thought I made bad decisions. Yeah, I thought I made bad decisions and went 2 over my financial limit. So to go to 6 is just bananas. It does put an entirely different spin on anything that Tony says in Discord now.
It does make a lot more sense where those jokes come from. And but he is right. It is 6 times blessed. Absolutely. Tony says, I'm Italian. Say no more. This is a guy who literally comes from a stock of about 150 cousins, all of which was because my grandmother decided to be pregnant for a good 22 years. Literally, she was pregnant for 22 years. So we got to get on we have to get this thing on the rails, or I'm going to be given the red card as host when Timucin does show up in a little bit. So for everyone in the chat, I see a bunch of you in here already. Thank you as always. Please, whether or not you are already a subscriber, can you like the video? Because right now I can see we have 0 likes and 14 people in the chat. So if everybody out there can just give that thing a like, if you know someone who might want to check it out, share it on your socials. If you aren't a subscriber, please consider subscribing. And of course, smash that little bell notification so you get all the updates that we're doing here at American Scouser TV, because we would absolutely love to get you in here. We'll start with the weather, Paul. Other than a terrible work forecast on your lunar Monday, how is the weather update down in the Carolinas today?
Today was a little bit cooler, which is great. We had torrential downpours and thunderstorms last night. About 9:30, I got a nice leak through the ceiling into my living room, so I've been dealing with that today. And a landlord who clearly doesn't want to do anything he doesn't have to do. So he had a repairman here today, and he was grumpy. So, but other than that, weather here is good. A fall like today. So that means it'll be 96 and humid tomorrow.
Oh, like so 96 and humid. It was, I will say, it was very, very nice here in Western Mass today. Cold this morning, kind of dark, dreary, but got out, got the day going, and then the weather just got nicer and nicer as the day went on. I will say I'm not looking forward to that fall-ish that people get all excited. Everyone who doesn't live in New England gets excited for the fall because they're like, oh, the leaves are going to change. You're going to get to go for car rides and look at leaves. And you stop doing that after the first time you go for a car ride and look at leaves. So basically, all fall means in New England is everything's going to die and winter is coming, which is basically the equivalent of saying hell will be upon us.
Feel like that was the opening line of Game of Thrones too, so that was well played.
I think it was actually, and I'm not even sure I ever saw it. I'm not even kidding. But I am pretty sure that is how the line happens and what goes down. So here we are once again. We are in the throes of the dreaded international break. One of my least favorite of the whole entire calendar year because it happens just 3 weeks after we get back to footy, and it doesn't make much sense to me. At the same time, with the World Cup coming, we're going to get even more of these. We have one in October. We have another one in November. So before we get to talking about Liverpool, Paul, some of the key storylines and headlines that are going around right now, how do you navigate the international break? Or is it just an absolute disconnection from the football 100%? Because we know how much you're a fan of international footy.
Yeah, I just completely disconnect. You know why? Because I'm a degenerate gambler, so I have a lot of work to do on college football in the first week of NFL.
And how did we do yesterday on the first week of the NFL?
Broke even. All that betting broke even. So I mean, it was all right. You know, we got a good game tonight. We'll see what happens with JJ and the Vikings and stuff. But yeah, so it did all right. You know, I've loosely kept up on it because I feel like it's my obligation to you fellas to at least know what's going on because you guys are going to ask me questions about this, right? Plus, I do want to know and make sure that our guys get through safe and sound and nobody does anything terrible and gets hurt on international break. So, you know, I have been paying slightly attention to, you know, the things like the Veert's goal and things like Forrest sacking their manager and that whole row with their, how do we say it? This very like unique character that is their Greek owner.
Yeah, and Alan says, "Oh no, if Timucin is not here, that means there is no trivia." Oh yes,
goddamn
Alan,
right.
you're absolutely fucking right. It means there is no trivia. I got a trivia question for you. How many times are we going to do trivia tonight? 0 is the answer. Ryan says, "Can they please change it to the whole month of December and the whole month of June for international break?" And that's it. I don't hate the idea of it. Oh, Alan says, "What's happening to your winnings, Gally?" Full disclosure, went to Vegas with $48 in my pocket with the intention, and let's be real here, people. I had an approval of what I was allowed to take out of the bank account prior to leaving, and I never took $1 out of the bank account, and I came home with $300. So I did get up to about 1,300 total winnings, but I had to spend some to get there. But I ended up coming home with $300 as well as one mighty hangover after the Wednesday night on Fremont Street because we kept that party rolling and it went late, and there was still a conference to get up to early Thursday morning. But we pulled it off. We had a good time. We sold some new accounts. We did the shaking hands, kissing babies. So let's get into it here.
Is there anything worse than a work conference hungover? It's
No.
gotta be top 3.
No.
The worst things that you have to do.
It's right up there. Any tabletop event where you have to try to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
Is very, very difficult when trying to do it with a 7-degree headache and the prospect of a 5.5 to 6 hour flight home and a 3-hour time difference on the way back. When we got to the airport, they told us there was going to be a 2-hour delay. And I actually thought to myself, I'm just going to die right here in Vegas. Like, I'm never getting home. I'm just going to be the guy in a fetal position in the little casino floor where you can smoke cigarettes inside the airport with
Right.
slot machines. But I didn't, because I had the greatest pilot in the history of pilots, and he literally fought everyone at Logan and was like, we have a plane, we have a crew, we are ready to leave. We are flying to Logan and you're letting us in. So basically, like, we all clapped the pilot like he was a hero. And then we realized, like, all he did was ruin someone else's day in some other city in America. And I gave zero fucks about that person.
Yeah, that's the American way.
It was,
you're fine.
It was absolutely great. And at the end of it all, we were like, how did you pull this off? And he actually said, nah, I'm a Marine, man. I'm used to pissing people off. And I thought to myself, shit, I really do love you. But we got home. It was a safe flight. It was a good trip. Thank you to whoever asked about it. It was a good time. I was happy to jump on with you guys, but let's get into it here. There's been a few topics that have come up. One of the things I feel like we have to touch on, the transfer window has ended. We will touch on a little bit of transfer talk, and I'll probably get your opinion overall because I wasn't on Monday with you of where you see this going. But I do feel like every once in a while, when Konate is asked a question, he decides to answer it. And I think about 30 seconds later, if he had a PR department, someone would tell him that was probably not a good idea to answer that question. So we are going to start with the Konate comments that came out. Whether it was a joke or not, Paul, I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, you know, for those that's small on the screen, but Konate was asked by French media if Real Madrid had been trying to sign him, if he was in negotiations, at which point he decided to basically, without really being asked, throw Kylian Mbappe under the bus and say that Mbappe is calling him every 2 hours to try to get him to sign. It has obviously taken off a bit. I don't know that it's as serious of a topic as it's being made, but I think when you're a Liverpool supporter and you've gone through what just happened with Trent last year, you've seen how Real Madrid has gone after players like Rudiger. They tried to get Alphonso Davies before he eventually re-signed with Bayern. So it is clear they tap up players that they want. And they basically tell them, Mbappe, if you want to come here, you will come on a free. Like, you will help us facilitate this, and that's how we'll pay you the money. So is it Konate being Konate, the big oaf of a kid? Is it him trying to push Liverpool's hand towards a contract, Paul? Or is there more to this story and he's kind of laying the breadcrumbs out there now without, you know, admitting to everyone that he's downloaded the Duolingo app and he's starting to work that through?
I think the big question is how much of this is Konate like positioning this for like in terms of a negotiation, right? How much of this is him pushing and trying to get the club interested in getting to the table and pushing for a contract extension? I think it's a very small amount of this. I think that Konate is a bit of a comedian, and in comedy, usually the humor lies in sort of conveying uncomfortable truth, right? So I think there is some layer of truth to this thing. Is he exaggerating about the every 2 hours? Of course, he's exaggerating about that. I did think it was hilarious that he ended this thing by saying he doesn't know how to speak Spanish, given the Trent situation. So he's clearly like smart enough to understand the context, which I think is like makes it a little less forgivable of like, oh, he was just being funny and not really thinking about how people would take this and run with it. I think it was a little bit more intentional than that. So I think there is a little bit of an angle here where he's negotiating, but I also think he's just a funny dude. And I think he saw an opportunity to riff a little bit here.
Do you think that helps his negotiation or the next 2 to 4 weeks at Anfield when he has to answer questions from actual Liverpool reporters about a comment that wasn't needed on international duty?
I think it certainly makes his life more difficult because now he's got to deal with the follow-up questions, right? And I think maybe he didn't think about that. I don't think there's anything that really helps him at the negotiating table that he can say outside of how he plays. I think that's the big thing is, can he be consistent and can he stay fit? And I think those are the two things that Liverpool are probably looking at. And let's face it, like as big of a fan and as big of an advocate as I've been for Konate over the last few years, at this pace, at his age, with his sort of yo-yoing in performance and form and his struggle to stay fit, my thing is, if your head is going to be turned by Real Madrid, that's fine. This club is now considered a destination. It's not a stepping stone for clubs like Barcelona, Madrid anymore. If you don't want to be here, we'll find a suitable replacement that will build on your performances. I think that's where this club is.
So when we talk about that, and I want to ask you, what in your mind, because there is talks that there is still a contract on the table or some form of contract negotiations happening. He's clearly not signed any form of an extension. What are those terms, Paul, for you? Is it 160 to 185? Like, can he command 200,000 in a world that I don't believe on paper Verts or even Isak is making 200,000 yet at the club, because that's not really their play? Like, where do you see it, and what's a fair number where Edwards and Hughes can maybe get his people to the table and say, this is the deal that we're willing to offer you?
So Real Madrid is essentially backed by royal money in Spain. And so when you get a free transfer, he'll get 200 probably, right? I mean, I'm assuming that Real will pay that. To me, what's fair is probably somewhere in that 160 to 185 range. That's what makes sense to me. If he wants to take that and be here, great. I think there's obviously he's well bedded in the community and the club at this point, and I think it makes sense for him to stay. If it's worth it for him to go to 200 and go to Real Madrid, I'll pack him tomorrow. I really think that, like, for me, it's like, if he hasn't watched this thing play out for Trent and seen what's happening now, then like that's on him. I think at the end of the day, if you want to go get 40 more a week or whatever, I can't fault you for it. But I think at the end of the day, it's, would you rather compete for trophies on all four fronts in a healthy environment that's sustainable and non-toxic? Or do you want to go to arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world with arguably one of the worst fan bases and deal with that nonsense every single fucking week? For me, you got generational wealth already. To me, it doesn't make sense from a career standpoint, but it does for a lot of players, and that's why they make that move.
Yeah, and I think that's where I kind of fall in the middle. So I got to ask you this, because you have been, I'd say, of all three of us, we've all been supporters of Konate and his skills, especially when he's at like the height of his game. You were one that was very boisterous, that he was the future of this defensive back line. He was Virgil's long-term replacement, not just at a skill level, but as like the number one center back.
Yep.
Do you worry at all about the world that's post Van Dijk if Konate's making 185 to 200,000? Like, do you think Ibrahim Konate can be the linchpin defender and leader of a back line from what you've seen, especially over those 2-3 years since we've been waiting for him to take the step? And ultimately, at times, he's kind of lost his position to Matip. For a period last year, he lost his position to Joe Gomez, which is like losing your position to a sick note. Like, do you still think that player is there, or could that be part of the reason that maybe the same level of offer isn't being bandied about that we might have seen 12, 18 months ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've cooled considerably on him just because of the consistency. Like, we always say the best ability is availability, right? And I think he's one that's in and out with a lot of like niggles, it seems like. And I think, like, when you look at him, we just haven't seen, you mentioned the Matip thing and the rotational thing. I just don't think we've seen enough from him. Like, the other thing is, like, with his personality and stuff, he's obviously a very likable guy and funny guy, but can he be the sort of voice of reason in the room when there's chaos and tension on the pitch? And I don't know that I've necessarily ever seen that from him. I don't know that he can grow into that. Right now, he doesn't seem like that guy, but I don't want to say that because I felt like the very same way about like, I didn't think that Van Dijk was really doing what you want a captain to do as a captain. It took him 12 months or so, 12 to 16 months. And now I think, like, I think there's, you can't even really dispute it. I think he's the unquestioned leader in the side because his body language has changed and how he directs traffic and when he speaks, how he takes corrective action with players, I think is miles different than it was 12 to 16 months ago. So can Konate make that change? Can he make that next step in maturation? Maybe, right? But I think able to be in a position to do that, you have to be consistently great on that back line and you have to be consistently available. And he's neither one of those for me.
So a bunch of the folks, Sir Z said it, Guehi replaces Konate in my opinion. Do you think Konate doesn't fancy the challenge from Guehi for a spot and that's why he may move? I'm not as sure it's that as much as it is. I think he might know that the writing's on the wall that the club is interested in Guehi for a lot of different reasons. Now, Alan says, evidently, FSG have stated today that they will not bid again in January for Guehi. So I want to correct a couple things on that. FSG doesn't make statements to the media around what they will or won't do. I did read the report as well. It was in the Times and it was Paul Joyce. So it's a credible Liverpool source. Also ones that sometimes help plant stories for the club so that they get insight into other breaking news. So there are some reports out there that Marc Guehi will not be offered another deal in January by Liverpool. Liverpool are content with the defenders they have to get through the season. And primarily it's a two-parter. One, they think they can get him on a free and the deal is already done and he wants to join Liverpool and he will join Liverpool. And two, they are really, really angry with Palace making them look like Muppets in front of their supporters after announcing a deal that had gone through. I won't lie, doesn't feel like an Edwards and Hughes type thing. If they think they could get a guy that could help them get over the line, win trophies the second half of the year to save a few quid when they already know they're going to save money they were willing to spend a week ago on a player. But do you think this could be them almost? They got a lot of shit for waiting till the last minute because they were so determined they were going to get this player for their reduced price. Do you think now they're thinking to themselves, like, we're going to get this player for like 15 million on January 1st? Like, or do you think there is some smoke to this fire and there's a chance they're just going to wait till he becomes a free? And is that a gamble when you know other clubs could come in and if someone offered a huge pay package, they might actually pip the player out from under you, especially with the sign-on bonuses, etc.?
I think two things are at play here. I think that they know that Marc Guehi absolutely wants Liverpool and doesn't want to be anywhere else. And this comes back to the fact that Liverpool is now a destination in world football, right? And I think that they know that. Is there a potential for somebody to come in and pip them? Sure, there always is. But I also think I'm not convinced we won't come back in January and get him. I think what happens is you got a lot of hubris in the mix here. And if you're talking about somebody who's renowned as one of the best negotiators in the world of football, and you've just done them dirty on the transfer deadline window, I think the last thing they're going to do is come out and say, well, we'll just roll over and get them in January.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to tip their hands. I think they are forcing Palace to understand they're going to make this uncomfortable for you. Let me ask you this. There was a conversation, I think it was on the Anfield Wrap, and one of the people said, if I were Guehi, I would refuse to play in 2 weeks' time versus Liverpool. Like, I would just say, you screwed me over. You knew where I was going. It's an uncomfortable situation. In all seriousness, if you were Marc Guehi, would you want to play in that match at Anfield in 3 weeks' time, knowing that no matter what happens, you can't win? You put in a man of the match performance. People say you're just trying extra hard against your new club. If you score an unfortunate own goal, people will be saying you're trying to secure your winner's medal early, especially for a guy who's done everything right all summer long and not been rewarded for it. Would it be smart for Glasner to say, today's the day I give my captain the day off? Or does that send too big of a message that he's already committed to going to Liverpool at the end of the year? Almost like what Eddie Howe did with Isak last year.
I think I would have done what Glasner should have originally done and make it his decision, the player's decision. And you know what I mean? Like that's if I was the manager, that's what I've done. But what I would have done, if I were Guehi, I'll tell you what, I would have a really hard time not packing my bags and going down to Mallorca and just saying, "See you guys." Like this was agreed upon. This is what we knew we were going to do. I've done everything right for this club. I've given everything for the Palace kit. I've gone out there. I've been a staple in the back three. We've won games. We've gotten into Europe. We've done all these things, and to have that happen because a manager, in my opinion, is putting his career above the club he's at, would make me want to walk. I don't know how anybody plays for that, honestly. I think it was a pretty, if everything that we know is accurate about how that went down, that's pretty shameful for a manager to put a player in that position.
He had already recorded a social media post produced by the club to say goodbye to the supporters.
How do you play for somebody like that? I don't know how you do
Insanity.
that. I don't know how you in good conscience go and play for a manager like that. Like the first thing that he said to me in training, I'd be flipping like water bottles and tables over and stuff. Like, I don't know how you play for that. It's crazy. I think it's unforgivable.
Well, I mean, especially a manager who would literally pack his own bags, drive himself to Manchester if United's job was open. And most people believe that's what this was all about. He knew that there was a good opportunity that both the Bayern and United jobs might be open later this year. And he is an absolute candidate for both of those top jobs. And he wanted to make sure his best player and his captain of his club was still there to help him succeed so he could leave.
Right.
It's just, it's everything bad about football. It's everything that we have to, avoid in it.
The kind of thing that you're used to seeing pre-NIL in college football with coaches.
It's a great point.
It's very, very strange to see that in European football.
So let me ask you this, and then we'll jump off the center backs. Should Konate stay till the end of the year? And let's say March to April, right? We're in a title hunt. Forget whether Guehi's coming or not. We saw what it was like when all the Liverpool supporters knew Trent was running his contract down and on his way on a free to Real Madrid. And let's be real, as boyish as we were frustrated and irritated, there was just as many people in the fan base saying, he's a local kid from Liverpool. You shouldn't boo him. Do you think there will be any goodwill given towards the Frenchman who came here 5 years ago compared to the kid who grew up in town? Like, I have this feeling that if supporters are put through this 2 years in a row and they believe, like Leone has shown, Gomez is healthy, I kind of have this feeling that it could get really, really ugly for Konate at the club. And comments like the ones he made during this international break don't help that. Do you think it could be worse for him, better for him? Because let's be real, it was for every person booing, there was someone yelling at someone about booing a local kid from Liverpool. Right. I'm not sure the French kid from Leipzig gets the same.
I don't think there's going to be the amount of vitriol. Let's just say this goes down. Let's say he gets his head turned. Let's say he's non-committal. Let's say he doesn't give the press a straight answer about pointed questions. Let's say all that goes down. I don't know that there's the vitriol about Konate leaving for a number of reasons. A, he's not from Liverpool. B, he didn't sign a contract and say all the things about wanting to end his career at Liverpool and be the club captain, and that was his like career goal, right? He's been a French international. We've known he'd come up through that system. And C, I don't think he's ever had the highs that Trent had or meant to decide some of the things that Trent meant. When we were at our apex, we built an entire system around that player, right? And there are parts of his game that really split opinions, specifically defensively. And I think, in my opinion, like, I just think that there is not a divisive enough opinion about Konate. And that probably speaks a lot to what he's done in the last 2 years, because I think if Konate was better and had performed better, had higher highs and meant more to this side and hadn't rotated in and out and lost his job and then won it back, like, I don't know that. I think that maybe the reaction would be harsher. But I just think because of the profile of the player, the position, and really what he's meant to this side, I don't know that it would necessarily be that kind of reaction. I don't think it would be. Maybe I'm wrong.
Speaking of rotating in and out, let's bring in the third wheel here. Hey, the boss is back, everybody. He gets to sit in the co-pilot chair tonight after refereeing. So, first of all, how many cards did you brandish during today's refereeing?
No cards, man. I try to set the discipline with just my yelling or my looks. If looks could kill, kind of
doing all that without technology. No automated offsides. Nobody calling.
No automated offsides. No VAR.
Old school, baby. Old school. But no, I really enjoy it. Actually, it's fun. Every team has one oddball parents. But I do notice. I mean, I don't know if Bickler, your kids have started this action yet, but compared to the days where I was on the sideline, I do notice that there's like a ridiculous emphasis on shutting up the sidelines.
That's good.
Like putting the coaches more responsible for their own fans and stuff like that, for one. And I do notice, like, even if I do say, hey, you guys got to keep it down over here, like, that's it. Whereas that's not how the shit went down when I was on the sideline.
When I was playing, it was rowdy as, Yeah,
I mean,
it was more me. It was more me telling my mom to be quiet. Like, I was like,
it was me with my grandfather. My grandfather got thrown out of and I'm not kidding when I say this. My grandfather literally got thrown out of like youth softball games for like arguing balls and strikes with umpires. They'd kick him right out of the park. I think he got banned from like one of my high school soccer matches because I absolutely like cleared some kid out and I ended up getting a card and my grandfather just went off. And then before he knows it, he starts yelling at the ref in Italian. And I think the guy didn't even know what he was saying. He was just so irritated and angry. He just kicked him out. And my grandpa was the type of guy who would go right to the other end of the fence on the edge of the area where he could stay and then just scream at the ref from there. Yeah, it was absolutely brutal, but I won't lie. I wish for one moment I could have him yelling at someone in my behalf today. It would have been great if he was at the casino just yelling at dealers over the weekend, supporting me as they took some of my money back. But I had asked Paul this question. I'll ask you quickly, Tim. I know you probably saw the quotes, the silly quotes from Mbappe, from Konate talking about Mbappe, calling him every 2 hours to recruit him to Madrid. And my question to Paul was, is that Konate just being like aloof and not understanding the story he could be creating with those comments? Or could there be some thin-veiled level of work being done by him and his agent looking to negotiate through the media for a contract similar to, say, Mo and Virgil did last year when they started reminding everyone the club wasn't offering them contracts, etc.?
I don't think so. Just knowing his personality, because you look at the other guys, right? Like Mo and Van Dijk, for example, the two examples you used, they're very calculated dudes. Like when they talk, they know what they're saying. Like before it comes out of their mouth, it has circled in their head a couple of times before it hits the mouth. Whereas Konate, I mean, we see it from the, like all these videos behind the scenes stuff. It's just like a goofy dude. So I think in his case, and it might be true, but it would be, it's like Mbappe saying like, yeah, when are you going to come over, man? And stuff like that. I mean, I can kind of see that. I don't think he had any ill intention of saying it personally. Like, I don't think he was like scheming or anything like that. If anything, he was just being honest that, yeah, like, like Mbappe keeps telling me to come out over here. When are you going to come over here, man? And stuff like that. So I can kind of see that. I didn't think of it much, to be honest with you. And I think, you guys were just talking like, as I was like logging in, I don't think Konate would get, I agree with Bickler, he would not get the negative response that Trent's got. Because I think Trent's scenario was so much more of a betrayal story than anything else. Because he was living the dream of every Scouser who lives in Liverpool, who's a Liverpool fan. And to shit on that dream is pretty shitty by itself, right? Like crapping on it, saying like, yeah, this is a shitty dream, I want another one, I'm gonna go to Real Madrid, is a crappy way to do it. And we talked about it all off season, like early in the season. Like, if anything, we were like, Trent is probably a guarantee. We don't know what these guys are gonna do because they don't have as much loyalty and stuff like that. I don't think Konate, one, like Bickler said, he doesn't mean as much to this fan base as even Van Dijk and like Mo did. And two, because he's not going around saying like, oh, like I'm a kid living his dream and like all that kind of stuff. There's none of that. He's just a pro. So it's not, I don't think you would expect him to do anything else. And I don't know, like you see Ekitike. I don't know if you guys saw this, by the way. When Ekitike first came, I think it was Robertson or somebody in the background. Like, oh, yeah, that's right. You got another French guy over here. You're happy, aren't you? So, I mean, that does make a difference to these guys. We kind of like overlook it and say, oh, they're professionals and stuff like that. But I think it's kind of like I can see why he would want to go to Real Madrid, and I don't think anybody would hold it against him as much as we held it against Trent. Rightfully so, mind you.
Raheem says, I just discovered this channel. Don't know what took you so long, but welcome to the party and the madness. Like the content already. Really appreciate that. Welcome. If you haven't already, subscribe. If you're in this chat right now, if you're listening to us on any of our different various outlets, please get over to the YouTube page. Give it a subscription. To all 7 of you who listened to me earlier and actually liked the videos, I truly appreciate it. But there's 25 of you, so what the hell is wrong with the other 18? Hit the like button. It goes a long, long way. And we do appreciate each and every one of you for being here. I don't disagree at all, Tim. I think that I asked the question because it was intriguing to me to see how it would go. I do think if word comes out that like he has signed a pre-contract agreement, something like that, I do think, to Paul's point, I think supporters are now on board with we're a destination and not a stepping stone. And anyone who starts to treat this club like a stepping stone might feel it. And that's why, like, when we had the people in our Discord channel, right, that were like, if Isak did this to us, we'd be going crazy. And other people jumped in and it was like, but nobody's doing this to us anymore because nobody's trying to, people are fighting to stay, see Harvey Elliott, not fighting to leave. If a player showed he is outwardly ready to leave and we have other players stepping up and winning, I could see it getting ugly for that person down the stretch. Do I think it'll be as bad as Trent? I don't. But I thought it was an interesting one. And clearly it's the international break and we haven't had much to talk about here. And if I had to talk about transfers any longer, I might transfer myself off the show. And before you know it, you'd have Maka in here asking about 442 rooms and no one on this panel would have a goddamn clue where we were going from there.
Victor and I would sneak out the back door. Yeah,
exactly. So let's take a quick look here at the upcoming fixtures. So these are the next 6 fixtures, starting with Burnley. When we come back to action Sunday morning, we go to Burnley. Should be an interesting one. We then have Atletico Madrid to open the Champions League. We play at home to Everton, home to Southampton in the League Cup. We travel to Crystal Palace. And then, as Tim will tell you, we go to a cauldron of hell. That is Istanbul. And the negative side of Istanbul. And we'll save your vitriol for the trip to Istanbul until later in this segment. But let's start with you, Tim. Burnley, Madrid, Everton, Southampton. How do you feel the manager is going to try to navigate this? Do you think we start to see rotation as early as the Burnley match with an eye on Madrid? Like, what are the 60-30 splits you think we start to see? Because we still haven't had a fully fit starting 11 yet get to start a match this season, in my opinion. So how do you see him trying to navigate this, knowing you have Burnley, into Madrid, and then Everton? Let's start with those 3 matches.
I hope. I mean, I don't know if this is what he's going to do. I got to look at the international schedule to see if there's any games still like tomorrow and Wednesday, like, you know, people coming back later or whatever. But if they're not, if everybody is there, I hope and I think, based on what we learned from last year, you play your 60s, go to the Burnley game, and you don't worry as much about the Madrid game. I realize the Champions League, I realize it's probably the toughest team to play within that group of teams we mentioned, maybe like with Everton and stuff in terms of physicality. But I think Slot learned from last year that there's no point in busting ass and winning every game in the Champions League because you can just get matched up with PSG or Real or somebody else in the first round. I think we try to navigate our way through the Champions League and focus more on the Premier League in terms of lineups. And I would do that. I would try to figure out what 11s I want going against Burnley away, Everton at home, and then I would kind of like backtrack that way and figure out. I mean, Southampton game obviously would be a rotation, but for your question, I think Madrid game, I would try to do it where, like I say, prioritize the Premier League, especially in this batch of games right here.
Bickler, how about you with the lineups? And I got a couple specific guys I'm going to ask you about after, but what are your first thoughts on away to Burnley and how you go about that match? Like, does that match give you the opportunity to not run Soboslai up and down the pitch at right back and actually start Bradley as an example? Or are you like I'm trying to figure out who the few guys that might get their shot, because eventually these squad players have to play some matches.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is that, like, I think it's a combination. I think like Burnley allows you to do some rotation specifically in the midfield, and then I think like the Atletico game allows you to do some specific rotation in parts that we haven't seen that make sense. Like for me, you could start Robbo in that Atletico match, and it makes sense to me because you're probably going to want your left back to hang back a little bit. You're going to want somebody that's a little bit more physical and has that experience. I think when you look at what you're doing with Burnley, you got to look at our players that are South American coming over, right? We got to look at the McAllisters. Like for me, it makes sense that McAllister is another one that gets rested and starts for Atletico. I think what he does in the midfield really translates specifically into how Atletico likes to set up. I think he's almost one of our most important players for that match. It just so happens to be that you're coming off an international break where it feels nice to rest them versus the Burnley side too. And I think Burnley is a little bit tricky. Outside of an old ass Kyle Walker and an old goalkeeper, you have a team that's almost entirely compromised of upcoming players between 22 and 25 that are all wild cards. So it's one of those things when you get these newly promoted sides, you sometimes get these sides that are a little bit tricky. And I think they're one of them. So I don't think that we can come in and fully rotate this side. I agree with Tim. I think it makes a lot of sense to come in and put your best available starting 11. And by available, I mean guys that you know are going to be okay. Not the McAllister that comes in for 35 minutes and looks like he just got over long COVID like he did last time he came off international break and we played him.
The good news was he did not feature at all in Argentina's World Cup qualifier. So I wonder if they got the message as well that he's just genuinely not fit, or he's made it clear. Makes me a little nervous that like when international managers aren't starting guys for Argentina, because normally they're like, fuck off, I don't care. I'll run you into the ground. I have you for 2 weeks and you will play. Makes me a little bit nervous on what's happening here. So Tim, you mentioned the Southampton match, right? Expecting rotation there. I think we all expect Leone to probably see his first action there. Are you starting coming off of 2 international flights and playing back-to-back matches? Are you starting Alisson Becker 3 times in 7 days coming off an international break that he flew to Brazil and back and played 2 matches? Or do you think there's a chance that Mamardashvili sees some action at some point between the Burnley, Madrid, and Everton matches? To your point, with the Champions League being more of an open, because I question whether he doesn't. I think playing Ali 3 times in 1 week after he plays 2 times and flies all the way across the continent and back is well, let's just say we've seen this story play out before. And it doesn't always end well with how those muscles work. And I personally think we might see him. I think we might see him in that Madrid match, actually, because I think they play on the counter and you kind of want a shot stopper at that point if you had to. But would you give him a shot in one of those matches, or would you make him hold out until the Southampton match?
Yeah, I would give him the Southampton game for Mamardashvili. I don't think you do, because of the fixture, right? It's Atletico Madrid, so I think you do put Ali there. He's definitely going to be at Burnley, and then you have the Everton game. If it was like Everton first, then Atletico Madrid, then Burnley at home or something like that, then you're like, maybe. But I feel like a derby game like that, you don't throw Mamardashvili as his first Premier League game into that environment. I think you still go with Ali, the experience. As long as he doesn't kick it with the freaking outside of his foot, all these back passes, I think we should be in good shape. And then you have him play those 3 games, then he gets the rest because Mamardashvili plays against Southampton, and then you kind of like go through a rotation. I think eventually we will see Mamardashvili play some Champions League games, but
Okay.
I think the Atletico Madrid fixture as a whole is kind of like too risky to throw him in there as his first game.
I do agree with the pressure that it would come being in the Champions League. It is at home, which would be a little bit better for him. Paul, how about you here? Forget the will he play in the next 3 matches. If you want to answer that, you absolutely can. But do you think we will see more of him this season, less injury, than maybe we saw in past years when it came to Kelleher? As in, they've invested that he's most likely the future, and therefore they want to get him more meaningful matches with the first team, with the top defenders, and not just give him League Cup, FA. Like, if we were to somehow get knocked out against Southampton, which you never know, could happen if you rotate and they take it seriously, right? There could not be a meaningful match for this guy to play till end of January. And I just can't see with this investment and the stature of the player. Am I over the top here? Or am I just too worried about Ali's health? Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't think you're over the top. I think this comes from the fact that, like, we're going to make the logical conclusion that you don't sign that type of player for that type of money for him to be a project or somebody that you're going to sell on later, right? So the logical conclusion is that he is a succession plan to Alisson Becker. So if that is the logical conclusion, and knowing Becker's health record and track record of not staying fit at the club, you would think that this would be the year, now that Kelleher is out of the way, that you're paving the way for minutes for him, right? So obviously there's the cup matches, but I think that he's going to take both cups and get minutes there, right? But I do wonder, and I'm not 100% sold on this, but I am wondering if Slot is going to look for opportunities and matchups that he likes to sort of bed him in as a starting goalkeeper, so that he's starting some league matches. Because I think the last thing that you want is a long-term injury outage for Becker, or Becker being sold, or he leaves, and you have this guy that you spent all this money on who really hasn't had a lot of EPL experience. He's just had the cups. I don't see that as something the club is probably going to want to be in a position to do. I think he probably gets his spot starts here in a way that's probably more than we typically saw Kelleher, who seemed to be sort of confined to either injury substitutions or cup matches. I think that we see spot starts from him throughout.
I don't believe he will start against Burnley, but I do think as the season goes on, you might see opportunities where he's coming back from a European fixture and he's in town on Thursday afternoon because they finished playing on a Wednesday night, and Ali's playing a game Thursday evening somewhere in South America on international break, and he comes back late. And I could see, maybe to your point, Paul, them saying, you know what, you're getting this first start after the international break, on this classic Saturday afternoon lunchtime kickoff that we love to schedule Liverpool for. Though it is funny, right? They haven't had to play one since Klopp left. It's almost like the league just doing this. It's like the league doing this to him. Like, see what you get, mother. So
here's one thing, though, by the way, when you look at, I was just like pulling up the schedule, like you have a lot of games, because I know what you mean in terms of like treating him the same as Kelleher and just using him for League Cup and stuff. But there's a lot of like Champions League fixtures where like you play like United on the 19th, on the 22nd, you go away to Eintracht Frankfurt. And I think you can play him there in the Champions League game away, for example. And then you can play him against, you play Forest, then you're going to play PSV at home in the Champions League. You could play him there. So the weekend away West Ham, it's Ali goes again. I mean, I think more than getting him specifically EPL experience, it would be more about getting him some more like exposure, higher risk games or more important games or whatever for his confidence. But there's a lot of fixtures, I think, in the Champions League where you can see him and give a break to Ali at the same time.
I think you're spot on, Tim. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he gets 3 of the 8 group matches in the Champions League. And maybe even more. Now, I mean, when we get to the knockout rounds, you go back to your number one keeper. That's what you do. It's just like when we get to finals and Paul and I get absolute vitriol for saying start your best keeper and not the kid who got you there. Because, you know, the adage is great about dance with the one who brought you, unless there is a better fucking dancer who looks better on the sidelines. Then go get her up and take her to the dance floor and dance if she's willing to dance with you. Or at least that's what they tell me. But there's no better looking woman than Kelly. So it's always Kelly all the time.
This schmoozing is unreal.
Hey, I'll say this right now.
Are we letting Gally do the clips for the reels this week? Because I know what's getting clipped if we are.
That would be clipped right there. It should be. I will say this. Just show me which one of your better halves has liked this stream since it started. Hover over those like buttons, people, and you'll see the smart one in my house already did it. So Kelly is the winner of that one. Real quick, in the league, these 9 points on the left side of that fixture rung. Burnley on the road, Everton at home, Palace away. How many points do we get from those? And what's the minimum required amount of points we need to acquire from those? Tim, I'll start with you.
Damn, I was waiting for Bickler to hop on, and Bickler.
He can't do math that fast. I needed you to give him time.
Bickler, how many points in a game? I mean, in an ideal world, 9. I would be okay with 7. Palace away is always tricky, like good or bad, and I don't know like how good they will be without Eze and stuff up top, but they're always solid defensively. It'll be interesting to see if he starts Guehi against us, by the way, and how he plays that game. But
we did talk about that earlier. I asked the question if I said I think I would not want to play if I were Guehi. But Bickler, he says 7 minimum, 9 is what he wants. Where are you on this? What do you think we'll get?
I mean, it's not surprising that my standards are lower than everybody else, but I would say 6. Here's my thing. Like, I think we very well could get 5 out of here. Like, I expect to win Burnley. That's the one I expect to win. Palace always gives us a hard time. Everton is not an easy side right now. They're playing well. They've actually got some attacking flow for the first time ever.
Grealish is playing. Grealish changed everything for them. It gives them a little bit of flair. It actually gives them an outlet.
He's got like 9 assists in 3 games.
And,
it's like ridiculous.
And you knew as soon as Dewsbury Hall went to Everton, he was going to turn into Messi just to piss Kazi off. Just purely so Kazi can like, how do I hate watch my boyfriend? I think I say 7. I'll sign off on 7. I really want 9 because I think if you get through those first 6 fixtures and you have 18 out of 18, you have put down a marker before even playing Chelsea the following week. You've let people know we started tough. We went to Newcastle. We hosted Arsenal. Yep. We had a derby against our in-city rivals. We went to a tricky place like Palace. And we came out with those points. So we got all the way through this show without talking about Alexander Isak. We're not going to go into Isak. I expect him to make the bench versus Burnley. I really do. I don't know if he gets on the pitch. Does he start the Merseyside Derby, or do you think we're looking at probably out to like the Palace match before he gets an actual start, or do you run him out in the League Cup just to get him minutes and just destroy Southampton's hopes and dreams? Either one of you.
Here's the thing where I land on Isak, right? Like, listen, like I worry about going into the Everton match and what comes with the Derby match day and what that looks like with a young Hugo who's never been in that situation before. I think with Isak, at least he knows, what these big rivalry games feel like in England. Granted, he's coming in cold essentially. So, that's the other thing you got to think about. I don't know that there's a good answer here. I think you probably want Isak to have a softer landing than Everton. I look at the inexperience of Ekitike and I say, like, I wonder.
So is it Palace maybe Palace where you drop him in? Because I'll tell you this right now, and we'll
because then he could talk to Guehi when they're marking each other on corners and be like, look, dude, you just gotta be a dick, man. You want to
hire my agent? Yeah. I can give you my agent's number. Yeah. He'll help you get vilified quick. Tim will go to the guy who grew up or lived in Istanbul at one point. can we all but assure that Isak's first match won't be on the road at Galatasaray, where they may just kick him literally on and off the pitch? Like, do you see where does he get bedded in for that first start? I know we'll
That's
see
why
him
I feel
before
like you don't put him in the Everton game for the same exact reason you just said. Galatasaray away will not be that much of a physical match because it's a Champions League game.
That's true. They won't get away with it, right?
League game where they get all the calls. I would not put any of our players out there just to send the young kids. But it's the Champions League game. It does not go by the same rules, so they will not be able to get away with the shit they get away with in Turkey. So that's the one reason I would not start him against Atletico or Everton. I think he gets to start against Southampton. And then maybe depends on how it goes, then a Palace as well. But I do not think you put him in the Everton game. I see a lot of, I was really looking to see, I'm not a huge follower of the Swedish national team, but I was following it mighty closely this week. He did come in today and get some minutes. I think that's a big sign for him to come in and get those minutes.
18, something like that, 20 minutes or so.
Or something, I think came in, right? So I think what happens is, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, where we have a huge drop off once Ekitike comes off. So I think you get Ekitike out there, who will probably get more and more minutes now. I remember after the first game saying after 60 he was struggling. So you probably get 70 out of him. And then, just imagine Ekitike is coming out because he's tired, and you're throwing Isak out there. Feels a little surreal, but I think that's what happens. We see that for a couple of games, and I think we get his first starts against Southampton.
All right, Southampton it is. I was saying maybe Palace. We had a roundabout here. We had another topic to talk about tonight. We're going to look at the Champions League roster. The beauty is we don't have a Champions League match till the 17th. So there's plenty of time on plenty of different shows for us to tick into kind of like what that Champions League roster looks like, what it meant for Chiesa to be left off of it.
Justice for Chiesa.
Why they had to go the route they did. When you see the roster and you read the rules and how crazy it is with the amount of homegrowns and non-homegrowns,
it's just really unfortunate that Rio hasn't been here in qualifying.
One more year.
Yeah.
If Rio was here one more year, he would have been on the B squad, and Chiesa would have made that team moonwalking into it. It doesn't shock me that he kept Endo over him by any means, but on some levels, I genuinely wonder how much of a role Endo's going to play at times in those Champions League matches. And more or less, once the fullbacks are fit and Frimpong and Bradley are playing, I do think we're going to see less of Dom at right back, which makes me think we're going to see a lot more rotation of Mac, Soboslai, Gravenberch, and Jones at those four in the base. So, and then when you have Nioni added in, I wonder if you could have squeezed Chiesa in at Endo's expense. But let's not forget, everyone forgets this, to Tim's point earlier, you don't have to win all the matches in the Champions League to make the knockout round, and you don't have to feature in the knockout round. I'm sorry, you don't have to feature in group play to be registered in January, because you get another registration window in January. So, if an injury happens or a player falls off, there is still an opportunity to register other players and potentially bring Chiesa in at that point, more in the knockout rounds. But let's get out of here on this. We got 4 days left here in the window, or in the 4 or 5 days left in this international break. And then we'll get to the weekend. There's a big weekend in the Premier League. There's a few really good matchups. You have the Manchester Derby. I'm sure the Rival Bros will be all over that. For anyone who's not watching our Rival Bros show, that is Timucin and his brother, where they talk about everything great about Liverpool and everything terrible about Manchester United. And the craziest part is, I think at this point, Tim likes Manchester United more than Edip does, to be totally honest. So if you aren't watching that show, it is outstanding comedy. Please check that out. It comes out early every week. We have our morning coffee shows, as well as Tuesday night panel show, Thursday night podcast. So we got all the shows that we're bringing to you. But give me your Burnley predictions in case, because we won't do a show together, the three of us. Tim, we'll start with you. How does the Burnley match go?
Then I'm going to go slot special, 2-0.
Okay. Bickler.
I think it's going to be a wild one. I'll go 3-2. We win.
No more
Wow,
wild
that
ones,
is
for
that
fuck's
is
sakes.
more that is more stress than I was looking for.
Yep.
I'm gonna say it's a 3-1. I'm gonna go with the Timucin special, even though I really, really want to go with really wanted to go with the clean sheet back to back because I think that would be a really big step in the right direction. I do find it funny that Calvin Ramsey's never made an appearance for the club, official appearance for the club, yet was listed on the Champions League roster. Like, that just shows you that Slot has sold every single youth academy player that registers in England and anywhere in Europe. Jamie actually says Hagrid versus Haggard. That might be the line of the night. That probably should be the name of the podcast. That really was a good one. For everyone that watched us tonight, all of you putting in all your comments, thank you very much. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Get on the page. I put out a post the other day about contributors. If you're new to this channel and you're listening to us for the first time, you want to get involved with the craziness that is us, send us a message on any of our socials. We'd love to see how we might be able to fit you in. We're always looking for new volunteers as we try to grow the biggest Liverpool community here in the United States. So for myself, Timucin, and Bickler, thank you for watching. Have a great week, and we will see you next week.